Can you hear me? Where are you? Hello. Hello, Bob. Hello, folks. Sorry for being gone for a couple days. If you've seen the video or seen me on social media, you know I've been sick, getting tested for some things. Feeling better now that I've had a couple days to recover and come back from having blood drawn, which was not fun. Long story short, I still don't know quite yet. It'll probably be a week or two before the test results come back. They're running 5 different tests to just generally see what's up. Hello, Gandalf. In the meanwhile, just been feeling extremely tired because, I mean, if you have anemia and you need blood and then they take blood, you know, you're gonna be tired. But I'm recovering and chilling with the cats. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for your support and the sweet messages. Gandalf, get your tail. Get tail away. Come here. Come, boy. Fat boy. Hello everyone. Phil, Dexmex, Chrisimity, Handsome Ratch, Surfin, Delvin, Noriko, Natasha, Pertrice. You got a man? I got a man. It's this man. I do have him physically right now. Hello, kitty. No, you can't leave. I have you. You are my man. Who'd I miss? Phil, Lobsoul, Liz. Thank you guys. I'm really, honestly, just tired. The first couple days, lots of pain because of the, it feels like your body is rebelling against physical activity, like severe migraines and hunger and shakes and cold, and it was really horrible at first. And that was what finally made me think, okay, I should probably get this tested, because I'd been working on my iron levels and stuff, trying to kind of build up a case of, is this what has been wrong with me? And what changed everything was switching a medication that made me just more susceptible to the symptoms again. So I was like, well, okay, time to go ahead and talk to the doctor, and he agrees that this is probably what it is. We'll know for sure when the test results come back. I think they'll probably be positive just because all the symptoms make sense. If they're not, I think there's some other more obscure types of iron problems you can have that you can get tested for. I'm sure he'll have an idea about what to do, but long story short, just waiting. I feel a lot better. I will hopefully do actual stuff tomorrow. I just didn't have any energy. Like, all day today, I've just been like, surely I'll feel better later. But, like, I'm just not fun. I would probably fall asleep. All I did was sleep yesterday. Hello to all the other folks hopping in. So I figured we'd do a short kind of question-answer thing. I'd update y'all on what was going on and then open the floor for folks who have questions if they do. I often get asked questions in comments that I never get back to because I get too many YouTube comments to answer them, and there's so many of them, and I just don't. It's just not that fun for me to answer YouTube comments. So if you have questions, you can ask them. Or, well, while I'm waiting for questions or between them, we could do a study session. I can show y'all some of what I do to learn all the weird shit that I learn. Come on, you. Get off. These are my study cards. When I'm researching a topic, I have books that I read, books that I note take in. I write in the books. I am not one of those people that thinks you shouldn't mark up a book. I mark up all my books. And I also have a lot of books on this thing. So many books on this thing. Yes, that is the Untamed. It's also where I read my novels. I take down paper notes, and then when a notebook's full, I type up those notes and put them in the computer and kind of organize them more so that when I need to, I can like Command F search for topics. And I also put them into note cards with like the most basic ideas on the note cards so that I can quickly go through and go, okay, what is this subject? What does this word mean? And it kind of helps me to, the 3 things together help me keep track of what I'm trying to learn about. So I figured I'd try and practice my note cards with y'all. Patrice says I'm competing with a cat. No competition. He's too soft and sweet. Do I bruise easily? I do. I bruise like I have all the symptoms. Easy bruising, shortness of breath. Anyway, my pronouns are, I don't really. They, them, she, her, I don't really care that much. It doesn't bother me really. What is gender? I don't care. But yeah, so today, this is my Buddhism stack. So we'll go through some of these and see if we can't learn together. How am I feeling? I'm feeling all right, much better, just tired. Like, I just don't have energy. Like, I'm just sitting here like, all right. Theravada Buddhism. All right, Theravada is technically the oldest school of Buddhism. It's sometimes called Hinayana? I think it's Hinayana Buddhism, but that's kind of an insulting term. The Mahayana Buddhism, which is probably the biggest and most famous term for Buddhism, is a kind of concept of the bodhisattva, a person that will reach enlightenment and hang behind to try and save everyone else. That's Mahayana Buddhism, and it's the most popular form because it's really accessible to people that can't live their lives as monks. So they called the other, older form Hinayana, as in lesser Buddhism, which you can see why that would not be great. Theravada is the better term to use for it. It's the school that's more like the monk school of Buddhism, the very original school of Buddhism that's taught how an individual, through practice and self-control and meditation, can reach enlightenment, and focuses on how to do that, the very oldest forms of the texts, all those things. So Theravada is original Buddhism in a sense, and it's still practiced pretty heavily in especially like the Southeast Asian areas. You see Mahayana way more in China, Vietnam, Korea, Japan, but if you go to the South, you'll see a lot more of the old school Theravada Buddhism. Unfortunately, all forms of Buddhism are basically gone from India, which is where it started. Let's see what I haven't. Let's see. Yeah, it's in Ceylon, Burma, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. I couldn't point to those places on a map, but I know they're in Southeast Asia. Gandalf, you are now in the way of the screen again. Why do you like doing this? I don't understand. There's a gender here, it's gone now. Yeah, basically, that makes sense. What book do you really want that you don't have yet? All of them, no. I would love to be able to get some of these Chinese books that I read paper-wise, but they're all in, Chinese. Like this book, actually. It's one of the only ones I've let myself get because it's art. This is the Chinese copy of Modao Zushi, the comic adaptation of the book, so it's like all in Chinese. But I know what happens in the translation, and I can look at the pretty pictures, so that's why I allowed myself to buy a book I can't read. Otherwise, I try to control my buying of books because I am an addict and I can get really bad with it. When I worked retail, I had to drive home by a Barnes & Noble every day, and I didn't always make it past the Barnes & Noble because I had a problem with buying books. Nowadays, I try to limit myself to buying secondhand at like Goodwills and used bookstores, and I have a lot of digital books from various questionable places, and so many of them that I haven't read that I'm trying to not buy anymore until I read more. But I just really like books. I like them. I don't know. I have auditory processing disorders, and I think I've always gravitated to books because I like stories, but sound can be painful sometimes, so a book is an easy way for me to indulge in something that doesn't hurt. All I did in school was read. TV, me. I did games quite a bit. But I got distracted from games really easy and didn't spend anywhere near as much time with games as I did with reading. Video games became my obsession much later in life. I mean, I would read in class secretly all the time. I was pretty bad at that. Let's see. Alright. You can always learn how to read Chinese. It's funny you say that. I'm working on it. Very slowly. I know 3 words I know now. Ni is you. Impolite. Well, not impolite, but like, general. Hao is good, well, nice. And if you do ni hao, that means hello. Basically, it means good you. Isn't that cute? I love it. So, ni, you gotta say it like, there's 4 different ways to say Chinese words, and it, depending on how you say them, totally changes what word it is. So, you have to say ni instead of ni or ni. Like, those are different words. Anyway, still learning all that. Very, very new to studying Chinese. And I think I'm only doing better with it because I've been watching TV shows that have helped me process it. I did not succeed at Spanish because when I was in college, I didn't have an interest in anything in Spanish. I could probably find something nowadays that would help me, but I feel like there's a lot more, there's not this bounty of fiction on the internet that's not being translated, that's in another language, in Spanish, the way there is, in Chinese, I feel like. Even Japanese, like, you don't have to learn Japanese to get access to all this fiction because they just bring it over all the time. Chinese seems to be way behind on that, and I don't know, I'm sure there's political, economic reasons for why we don't import as much Chinese media as we do everything else. Anyway. They say English is the hardest language. To me, it's the easiest. See, having practiced Latin, Spanish, French, and now a little Chinese, I can see why people think English is hard, and I think if I had not learned it just as a child, I would think it's hard because there's just so many extra rules from nowhere. Like, you know, it's not that simple because there's so many things that we just gobbled up from other languages that make all these exceptions you have to remember. It would drive me nuts if I didn't already know. Like, I'm an English major, and I can't actually tell you the rules of language. I just kind of know instinctively what sounds right and wrong, but I can't tell you why, because there's so many random, obscure reasons for why things are that way. I'm sure there's harder languages, but I can see why people would be frustrated with English. Alright. Buddhist schools. Schools of Buddhism. Let's see how many I can remember. There's 3 big terms. Mahayana is that school, a term for Buddhist schools that focus on saving everyone, regardless of whether they are a monk or not. Theravada is the older form that really focuses in on personal salvation and the idea that you can't save other people, you have to save yourself. Vajrayana? I know the first term is Vajrayana. Probably Vajrayana. Vajra means thunder or lightning, and it has to do with a kind of weapon that exists in old Indian myth. And that covers the schools that are like Tantric Buddhism, that are more esoteric and have more to do with extremes of emotion, and the idea that love and hate, anger and peace, these things are kind of the same because they both have, you know, in the eyes of eternity, they're the same thing. It's kind of hard to explain in shorthand, but those are the 3 big terms for Buddhist schools, and then beneath those are smaller schools. There's 4 major ones in China, one of which is Chen. I can see the words in my face. I know there's 4 Chinese schools. From Chen Buddhism, there's Zen Buddhism in Japan, which is a school that absorbed a lot of Taoism when it was in China, and so it's kind of Buddhism and Taoism put together. That's Zen Buddhism. There's Shingon Buddhism in Japan. There's like 3 or 4, there's like a handful of schools there. What else? I know Tantric is its own thing. Let's see what schools we got. Okay, there's 4 Tibetan schools. Yeah, the other ones I got. Vajrayana, that's what it was. Vajrayana. Bye, Serpent, thanks for joining us. Hello, Alexis. P5R when, Muse? Eventually. I'll probably finish Silent Hill Homecoming next since we got behind on that, and I wanted to play through and didn't get to, so we might play it after we finish Homecoming, and then it'll probably take us, 2-3 more streams on that one, I think? English is pretty easy to speak, not so to write. Spanish, one of the hardest, because we have a bunch of conjugations. Oh man, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say I hate your language, but when I was trying to learn French and Spanish in school, and I had processing disorders, learning that ending thing that changed words based on, like, who it was addressed to or what state it was, like, that frustrated me so much, and I had no ability to discern those different terms from each other. I could not figure it out whatsoever. Like, I could read the sentence and be like, okay, that's what that means. Trying to write what I was trying to say, like change it from English into French and do the right endings, couldn't do it. I had the worst time with it. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's very true, Rufio. Healthcare can be a lot in the world, especially this country. Been binging Hellraiser content. Oh, I missed, would you be interested in doing symbolism on Hellraiser? I gotta watch it, I've never seen it. We were gonna stream it that one time, and then it wouldn't, oh, that's right, the stream service wouldn't work for some reason, it wouldn't let me. I think it might have been because I had an ad blocker on, because I had the same issue the other day, and turning off the ad blocker made it work, so maybe we'll watch Hellraiser on a stream at some point, in Discord. Join Discord if you want to watch TV with us. Hello, Sky Sinner. Use Tandem to learn Chinese. Ooh, nice. I've never heard of that one, because I've tried or I've looked up a couple of the different big famous language apps and none of them have Chinese. I do own a program that I need to actually get around to using more that's supposed to teach you, and I just don't remember to use it all the time. Someone who's learning Spanish and has processing issues, I completely hear you, right? It's so frustrating. I have so, especially like coming from English to Spanish. I feel like, you know, French to Spanish, maybe like a language that already has that built in would probably make it a lot easier to adjust to, but it's just so much harder coming from English and not having that, and gendering all your words. Oh, it drove me. I honestly I was coming to terms with my gender in college, and I was doing Spanish in college. I did Latin and French in high school. And it just, it messed with me so bad to always have to be framing these words as if I was a girl. And I hated that. But that was more, I think, of an environmental thing because of the school I went to, but that's another story. It's replete with symbolism and psychology and LGBTQ. Are you talking about Hellraiser? Ooh, I will have to check that out. I will have to look that up for sure. Alright, let's see here. What's something... Oh, good. This just says Buddhist terms. Let me see if I can just cover this and... Okay. Mu is a Chinese word that means nothing or emptiness. And it's like a concept of, I think sunyata is a similar thing in Buddhism. It's this idea that everything inherently has no meaning. It only has meaning when we give it meaning, which is what makes it meaningful. It's like this idea that there's nothing that inherently has value. Like, you can't say something always is worth this much money or made of it doesn't. We decide what things are worth and what they are, and so sunyata and the kind, I think, concept of mu in China is somewhat similar. Is this idea that nothing's name is inherent to it, nothing's identity is inherent to it, everything is ultimately nothing, but that's why it can be everything. Because from nothing, we can turn it into whatever we want. We can name it whatever we want, we can do whatever we want with it. That's what makes life so fascinating, that so many things can come from nothing. Sorry, Lobsoul. I'm very, very happy that my language definitely did not have that issue. I'm sorry for those that have had that issue. Is Buddhism nihilism? That's a question so many people get, and I think it's in part because for especially Western folks, it's very hard to translate the kind of concepts that are being translated and not have them come across in our terms as sounding very nihilistic. It's not. The things about Buddhism that you have to understand is that it's about breaking down the self and society so you can see things how they are. And when we've been raised our whole lives to put our value into the systems of ourselves and our society, that feels like you're destroying yourself. You're being self-destructive, getting rid of these things. What Buddhism says is, no, those things aren't you. It's kind of like the vulnerability of removing all your layers of clothing to realize, oh, I am naked, this is myself. Buddhism says, go further. Get rid of this, get rid of that. That is not you. I am not Amanda, my name that I was given at my birth. I am not Amanda. I can be whoever. I can name myself Charles II of England. I can do that. Nobody can stop me. Nothing is inherently true. So if I decide today my name is Charles, you guys have to respect that. Buddhism is really empowering because it says you are not your body. You are not your identity, your country, your gender. You're nothing that society says you are. You are you. You are something far more than these small layers and terms and even your thoughts. And think about, I think, how empowering that is to someone who has bad mental health and can't control their negative thoughts, or a physical body that causes them a lot of pain, or someone who's transgender, or those ideas that you are not your thoughts, you are not your body is really, really freeing. And so you have to look at it as from the perspective not of you are nothing, but you can be anything. You're not what society and life has conditioned you to be. Condition is a word that's used a lot in Buddhism for the idea that from the moment we're born, we're conditioned to think in certain ways and see things in certain ways, and we got to break those conditions and free ourselves from them. I love Buddhism. It's probably the closest to a religion that I have. One day maybe I'll consider that more seriously. Let's see what I've missed. Anything? More, yes, self-actualization is a good term for it, and enlightenment, I think, in some ways can frighten people when you discuss it, because enlightenment is nothing like what we know, and that's why it's often described as nothing, because it's not this, it's something else, and so if this is everything, it's nothing. But there's also this idea in Buddhism that, and Hinduism, which has similar concepts, I think, in a different way. Buddhism sees it as something that can end, but there's this idea that we live multiple lives. Like, if you want to achieve enlightenment, that doesn't mean you have to go do it now and then join nirvana and go be nothing at the end of your life. You could be reborn 9 times before you achieve nirvana. So having attachment to this world isn't necessarily evil. It's something you work at breaking away from, and if it takes you 9 lives, that's not a sin. You know, and that's something I also love about Buddhism, is that there are words, which are in my freaking terms somewhere, terms for what is necessary for nirvana and what's not necessary. There's nothing that says it is sinful, just is it necessary? You know, do I need this to achieve nirvana? Do I not need this to achieve nirvana? The term isn't... Aha! I'm sorry, Bob, did I scare you? Bobby, come back! The terms are kusala and akusala, which means helpful and non-helpful. So even then, terms like drinking, if you drink a lot, that is not helpful for nirvana. It's not a sin, but it's not helpful, you know. Let's see. my name isn't Muse. Yes, my name is now Charles. You cannot stop. No, it's not. I don't like that name. It's not my name. When you understand those aspects of Buddhism, you realize why the only woman to rule as Emperor of China was not only Buddhist, but favored it during her reign. That does make a lot of sense, because Buddhism is so much more open about those ideas of nothing being true and certain. Are you talking about Wu Zetian? I don't know a lot about her officially, but I read a book about her when I was a kid, and I absolutely fell in total gay adoration for that lady. She was so cool. If I remember the story right, she was a member of the imperial harem, and she ended up the mother of a imperial son, I think. Some things happened, like a bunch of things kind of coincidentally went her way, where everybody else was dead and she was the last one standing to rule, and instead of being like holding the throne instead for her son, she was like, nah, I'm gonna be emperor now. I'm gonna do that. You can't stop me. And she got to rule for a little while, but it went poorly at the end for her, unfortunately, and then they tried to erase her name from history, but they did not succeed. Of course, what I read was a fictionalization of it. Who knows how true all the details were, but it was a good book. Empress by Shansa. I really love that book. Oh, hi, sixth kid, I think. I can't read from this distance. Sure, share it in the Discord if you want to share some music and stuff. We have a channel for that if you have things you create and such. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. Basically, I mean, different Buddhist groups kind of take it differently. Vajrayana probably would take it more like nothing is true, everything is permitted, and that's kind of the tantric schools, which everybody knows because of tantric sex, but it's more than that. They basically say that if nothing is true, then yeah, we can do anything because it's all the same in the end. They do really outrageous stuff, and like their artwork can be incredibly violent and gory and depict like godly characters as incredibly angry and violent, to say like, yeah, it's the same thing. If nothing inherently has value, then everything inherently is the same. Anger and love, hate and violence, they're all the same. So they have rituals like, man, my favorite one, cover your ears for the next 30 seconds if you don't want to hear so much TMI. There was an initiation ritual in southern India, I think, a while back. This is vague in my head. I just remember the details of, to initiate a new member of this school, he would go with his teacher, his male teacher, to a female member of the group. There was a lot more freedom for women in these particular sects at various times. It shifts and changes, but there was more women, it tended to be, in the tantric groups, partially because they needed women. So they would go, and these three would chill out together, and teacher would have some fun times with the lady, and then when they were done having their fun times, teacher would get some of his fun juice and some of the ladies out of the and then the student would eat it. Oh God, because nothing is wrong and everything is permitted, so we're gonna do horribly what you would consider blasphemous or inappropriate, because it's not inappropriate. Nothing has inherent value, so we're gonna do really wild stuff. Anyway, they have a lot of wild rituals. Oh, bye Rufio, thanks for joining us. And hello Sergeant, welcome. Thank you so much for the support, Ratch. I will pet all my kitties. Gandalf is looking at us. If I can get... Come here, kitty. Kitty. Come here, kitty. And Bob has run away. I have to get the Bob. Hi, baby. It's okay. You have to let go of the bed. Let go. You have to let go. There you go. He's okay. I pet the boy. I pet the boy. I think he's anxious because there was a bit of a dog kerfluffle earlier. The dogs disagreed with one another and made a lot of noise, and he's been a little jumpy ever since. He's okay, baby. Ratch loves you. Yes, much love. Can I give scritches? Chin scritches? Gandalf's hiding behind my computer monitor. Candy, can you come over? Can you say hi? I give pet? Yes, I give pet. Good pet. There we go, camera. Let's see. There was a lot of smearing during her reign, talking about the Chinese female emperor, by nobles, and was seen as a scheming, evil woman that tortured people, but recent discoveries had painted her in a different light. Certainly she did bad things, but it was more in line with what plenty of other emperors did. Yeah, I don't think you can ever be a good person in those kind of positions. She seems pretty average, for par for the course, but the book I read just made her so, empathetic. For one, because, I mean, what choice do you have when you're made an imperial concubine? You know, at that point, I feel way more for the women in these stories than I do any of the other people. But, yeah, it was very interesting. I really loved that book. I have it on my shelf over there somewhere. But, Shansal writes some really great stuff. She also wrote The Girl Who Played Go and, Alexander and Alestria? I read that one. That was really good. But it's been a long time since I've read any of them. Empress just stuck with me so much. I loved it. Alright, water. Oh no, I'm out. I'll have to get some more in a minute. Let's see, where'd my cards go? Alright, since we're doing Buddhism, and I have so many of these cards, let's see if we got... Alright, bhikkhu. A bhikkhu was that the Indian term for... Okay, an almsman. A bhikkhu was a B-H-I-K-K-U, was the old-timey term in India for an almsman, which was a monk that went out into the places and begged for food and money, and basically survived because of people giving things to them, which was considered good for the community because that was good karma for them to help take care of the monks. And then the monks got to like preach and teach people and spread, be able to focus on their enlightenment rather than earn a living. And they were called bhikkhu. Men or women were bhikkhuni. I'm probably saying those words wrong. I think they are Indian words, maybe, or maybe they are Chinese. It doesn't say. Brahmacharya was the holy life of the bhikkhus. Okay, that's definitely an Indian word, so I think this is probably the Indian term. Arahant is another term for, I believe, an enlightened monk, somebody that's reached that level. Arhat would be the Sanskrit term. Pali is the other term. Arahant is Pali. I believe Pali is an Indian dialect, not, I don't know if it's currently used or not, but most of the oldest Buddhist texts are written in Pali, so you'll often see the terms kind of put side by side. Most people probably know the Sanskrit terms, which is more kind of, I think another, I don't know if it's another Indian dialect or if it's the modern one. I don't know enough about Indian languages. I just know these two languages are very important to Buddhism because most of their oldest texts are written in them, and the only complete versions we have of the original Buddhist texts are the Chinese one, which was a translation, so it's going to involve some changes and things, and the Pali, which is the original kind of written down version. Nibbana is the Pali term for nirvana. Nirvana is the Sanskrit term. most of the terms you see in English are probably going to be Sanskrit. Excuse me. Bye, Delvin. Thanks for joining us. Have a good one. Let's see. Alright, we can talk about the 3 aspects of Buddha. I believe this is something that Mahayana Buddhism involved itself in more greatly, but in the Buddhist tradition, there's kind of 3 bodies of Buddha. There's his real physical body, the body that he inhabited when he came down to teach, which also involves any other body that he was incarnated into, and many other schools of Buddhism have over time said, that guy was Buddha, that guy was Buddha. There's schools that say that Gandhi was Buddha. And so the physical human body that the Buddha inhabits when he comes to the world is one of the bodies of Buddha. There's also what's kind of called the form body of Buddha. I don't remember the terms. Dharmakaya, Samhoyakaya, Nirmanakaya. So one is his human physical body. The next one is the form body, which is more like when he died. There was this decision that was made to spread out his ashes, his remains across to these different places, and to create different holy places that people could travel to and honor him at. And they were considered actual like pieces of his body, and it was very important to go and experience being in the presence of them. The third is his actual teachings, his written word, eventually written word. It was probably written down somewhere in the last 100 years after he died. It's very interesting how different it is from Christianity, which has this similar kind of, we had a prophet that taught a lot of people and eventually his stuff got written down. The way that the monks worked meant that his writings were a lot truer probably to what he taught. It doesn't mean it's historically true as far as what it says about Buddha, but that these are probably exactly what he said and what his followers taught. Because the monks all knew memorization techniques, really, really good memorization techniques. So after Buddha had passed, they'd been walking around having memorized these terms and taught all these things for 60 some years. And some of his contemporaries were still alive when they all had this big meeting and said, hey guys, what are we going to do about all this? And eventually, at this meeting, they decided to start writing stuff down. I think it was the second big Buddhist meeting. And eventually when the schools kind of started to diverge and change things, unlike Christianity, they didn't take stuff out, they added stuff in. So most of the kind of original school of thought in the original text still exists for the most part, except for ones that we know existed and just don't have a copy of. So it's not like somebody took them out of the books, it's just that those books got destroyed. Indian temples and Buddhist temples got destroyed a lot by invaders. I believe it was Muslim invaders at one point. It probably changed hands over time, but eventually Buddhism in India was killed out, and a lot of texts were lost, which is why we don't have everything. What was that? Oh, and another interesting thing that this tells us, the way that the words were memorized and then written down, the way that they're written tells us that the Buddha was probably a real guy, because he's so old it's hard to verify he existed, but his words have such a unity of concept and of style that it probably was all created by one person. His discussions and his teachings all feel like the one person wrote them. The people he taught it to memorized his exact words verbatim and wrote them down. So it was probably one guy. Was this one guy a prince from so-and-so that, saw 3 people? And no, the mythological idea of where Buddha came from is probably not true, because for one, the clan he was from did not have princes. So the whole idea that he was a lofty prince couldn't have been true, because his people didn't have those. He was probably the son of a higher level bureaucrat. They had this clan unity where there was kind of a group of higher ups who ruled everybody. He was probably one of those, probably sheltered, but not the literal mythology of the story of how he came to be Buddha. That was probably developed a little later on, mostly to teach what, Buddhism was trying to teach already. So it was kind of created to serve the needs of the community and give them a mythology to come around rather than being historically true. Hello, Diana. Hey, Billy. Hello, Helena. Aw, Bob looks like one of your childhood cats. Aw.
Bob. You say hi, Bob.
Can you explain the concept of Dharma? Dharma is the teaching. I think I actually have the official... So Dharma is the Sanskrit term. Dhamma is the Pali term. It is basically the teaching of the Buddha. It is his words, his lessons. It is the way, is another way of describing it. It is not just a way to describe the written works of Buddha. It is also the way of living as a Buddhist. It's kind of the concept of this is how to live properly as a Buddhist. This is how to live and follow the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's teachings being Dharma. Let's see. I didn't write it down, really? I wrote down everything else. I guess I didn't write down Dharma, but I mean, it's a pretty early term, so that's probably why I didn't write it down. I thought I was too good for that. Let's see. Yeah, that doesn't cover it. So yeah, it's the teachings is a good way of translating it. Different people have translated it different ways, but it encompasses the things that Buddha taught and the way to live as a Buddhist. That is Dharma or Dhamma. You probably see it more as Dharma. If any of the words have R's in them, that's probably the Sanskrit version. No R's is probably the Pali version, and Western folks tend to translate the Sanskrit. I think nowadays it's switched where academics tend to use the Pali terms, I guess because they're older, but most Western folks won't recognize those words, so. Curious how an English speaker would approach the word. How would you pronounce Mazjofel? Mazjofel? I'd pronounce it Mazjofel. I'm sure it's wrong. I'm also not that skilled at language, but oh well. Let's see. What are other... Alright, so the term for the actual physical, like, oldest book, or books of Buddhism is the Tripitaka, or Tipitaka. Again, no R is Pali. Which is the three baskets. Baskets being like, it carries Buddhist teachings. There's the three books, essentially, the three baskets of Buddhist teachings, all together called the Tripitaka. One of them is the Vinaya Taka? Why can't I ever remember the ends of the words? It's in here somewhere. Well, one of them is the Vinaya. I believe the Vinaya is the one that describes the way that monks have to live. Early Buddhism differentiated heavily between how a monk was going to live and how the average person was going to live, with the belief that you could never really achieve enlightenment as an average person, because if you have to be concerned with, do I have enough money to pay rent this month, you can't be detached from the world. You have to care to be able to make money and survive in a society. You know, we live in a society, and if you do that, you can't be enlightened. And so the early monks had ways of teaching the average person how to live better, not necessarily to achieve nirvana, but to be a better person living in society. And then the monks had their own thing, which was achieving enlightenment. It was only with the death of a pretty highly respected member of normal society who was Buddhist, who kind of said, hey, why didn't you teach us about nirvana? Like, maybe we'd get it eventually, you know? And that's when they started to kind of open up some of the more monkly teachings to everyone. The Abdharma was one of the books as well that was also probably not taught to most people. And that's like the real psychological deep shit. I shouldn't call parts of Buddhist teaching. I need to stop cursing so much. The really kind of Pitaka, that's the word. Vinaya Pitaka, Abdharma Pitaka, and the Sutra Pitaka. Pitaka means basket. So it's far more psychological. It's more about the mindset of the Buddhist. So it's not necessarily useful for, say, the layman, but as far as the monk trying to explore and learn about the worldview of the Buddhist, it's very useful. The Sutra Pitaka is the most basic thing. It's the Buddhist teachings. It's his lectures. Involves a lot of like morphisms and quotes and short stories that explore how to be a proper Buddhist, how to be a good person, how to achieve enlightenment, kind of, not as much, but The most basic thing you will probably ever see as far as a text of Buddhist work is the sutra. Probably heard that term. I knew it from Sayuki, which is a Japanese manga that deals with the journey to the West, and the main characters all carry sutras. And that means it's a teaching of the Buddha. But apparently they can use it to kill demons in the book. And yes, Vinaya was about the monastic vows and the doctrines, the things that monks couldn't do. They couldn't do quite a few things. They can't drink. Likely in part, one, it's a shortcut. The drinking and drugs is considered kind of, one, either a distraction from enlightenment or a shortcut to a different mind state. Because back then, there were priests in the Vedic tradition who used a drink/drug called soma to reach the gods. And Buddha basically looked at that and said, that's not enlightenment, you're just getting high. So he forbade his monks from doing the same thing, which is why monks do not, do all that. No eating meat, or at the least, they lean towards a vegetable lifestyle. They're not like gonna kick you out for eating to survive. The rules tend to be do what you can, and if you have to eat meat to survive, well, you gotta eat meat to survive. Like, ultimately, protecting human life is the most important thing. One of my favorite stories relating to that was a temple that had to summon an exterminator for cockroaches because they just literally could not live with how many were in the temple, even though they had tried, and eventually they had this big, long meeting about whether or not they were gonna kill these cockroaches, because life is life, and they ended up having to. I think those are the major ones. Like, no killing, no stealing. There's a fun through line of, there's rules against sex in the teachings, and specifically monks, depending on where you go. I think Japanese monks tend to be cool with having families and marriage and stuff. Other sects, there varies whether you can get married or not, but the rule against sexual behavior has changed, where like the oldest ones are something like no adultery. Nowadays, you tend to see no sexual misconduct, like no like evil acts within sexuality. Originally, it was just like, don't cheat, or don't have sex at all, depending on, what sect of the monks you were part of. So survival cannibalism is okay for Buddhists, right? Making sure. Well, it depends. It's all about the circumstances, because Buddhism basically says that rules are made to be bent, and they're guidelines, and you have to examine every situation as it is right then. Like, man, if you're stuck in the wilderness and with another person who died and you need to survive, well, I guess you're gonna eat that man meat. It's not immoral, exactly. You have to live. You didn't kill him. If you killed him, that'd be something else. Did I say the word right, Ratch? You didn't give me a score, 1 to 5. I just realized Makoto has a skill called Vajra Blast in P5. Ooh, it's probably a lightning attack, isn't it? Vajra is specifically a kind of like, I think a trident, kind of meant to represent a thunderbolt, which is a really holy symbol because it connects the earth and the sky. Visually, it is literally like electric power connecting the heavens and the earth, and it was seen as the weapon of quite a few high-level Hindu gods, and so it's used a lot in especially Tantric Buddhism as a symbol of various things, and that's why the overarching name of Tantric schools is Vajrayana. Hello, Dylan, welcome. Everyone knows the best monks are the warrior monks of Japan. I mean, anime would have you believe there's a lot of warrior monks in Japan. I don't know how true that is. Though I remember that there's an interesting change as the schools, they kind of differentiate, where when India eventually doesn't have Buddhism that much anymore, Hinduism has a re-flourishing, Islam, what's that one? It's not Sikh, it's, there's another that's very Jainism, that one is big there. But because of the distance, you see Buddhism evolving really differently in the north and south. So like Chinese Buddhism is influenced heavily by Taoism and by Chinese ideas, which then go to Korea and Vietnam, Japan. So that's a very different Buddhism from what is more specifically nowadays probably Theravada Buddhism, which was far more closer to what was originally the Indian Buddhism, and that spread to like the various Southeast Asian areas. They have some like core concepts in common for sure, but different ways of kind of implementing the ideas, different traditions. There's a lot of shamanistic elements in the southeast, if I remember correctly. Things like that. I think there's a lot of Taoism there as well eventually. I don't remember quite as much when it spread, but I'm working on reading all that. Good effort, 7 out of 10. I didn't make the F harsh enough. Mashufel. 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 I tried. Let's see, I do have a China tag over here. This is my China. I separated some things in here because China has so much of its own, like, history that putting it under Buddhism, nah, it needs its own thing. So, like, general Buddhism, China, and then I probably should have a Japan one eventually. Chinese Buddhism, how does it vary? Okay, so, how to get there? Over time, and I mean it was like hundreds of years, people were traveling kind of this way, like up the Silk Road? I don't remember if that started in India. Like there's some mountain ranges they have to get around, Himalayas and some others. China's like half mountains, but eventually a lot of migrants and Buddhist priests wandering would eventually find China and kind of arrive there and slowly translate their works into Chinese so that they could be understood. Chinese people, scholars started to see, oh, well, this is some cool shit, and translating it themselves, going to India to get more stuff to translate. There were whole people that were like, hey, you know, we're China, we don't, you know, there's always those people that are like very nationalistic, and, you know, there were some scholars that were like, we don't need this import from India. But then also where they were like the poor folks, the commoners, who were kind of confused because to them it was really similar to Taoism. So they were like, wait, I thought we had this already. We don't, what? And eventually it was its own thing. There's a history of a rivalry between Taoism and Buddhism for quite some time where they each kind of fight for, influence in the court, the ability to have like temples and to preach and all of it. There's a lot of history that I've barely touched the surface of. Eventually they really do start to fuse and become more, especially in the common life, probably more of a singular aspect of their life, like they're part of society. Imperial wise, they probably had a bit more power struggle going on, but nowadays it's very much Taoism and Buddhism tend to be two parts of the spiritual life of China, covering different things. But China eventually, they translate all the works into the Chinese canon, which is one of the only complete canons we have of the literature. And the interesting thing they did was they came up with this aspect that we call upaya, which is the idea that everything is true. I think we've talked, I talked a little bit about this in one of our videos recently, didn't I? They didn't get rid of any teachings or sutras. They just said, okay, it's all true, even the parts that contradict, because sometimes Buddha changes his lesson based on who he's talking to, which is a really interesting way of explaining why certain things contradict. But specific schools would favor specific sutras, and they got named for them. There's 4 schools. I don't remember the names, so I'm going to cheat. I didn't write the names down on here! I mean, I ran out of space. Oh, here we go. Chinese Buddhist schools. I made its own thing. Tiantai, which preferred the Lotus Sutra. The Huayan preferred the Garland Sutra. The Chan, I think it's probably more like Chan, which is their Zen Buddhism. I call it their because in England and in the West, we know what Zen Buddhism, like everybody's heard probably of Zen Buddhism. It's called Chen in China. It would spread to Japan, and Japan would create its own kind of version called Zen. And then there's Pure Land Buddhism, which is the school that believes in the Bodhisattva who becomes enlightened and creates a pure land where people who are normal and not enlightened can go after they die and have peaceful life. Basically, it was kind of a way of inventing a heaven concept, sort of. Not exactly, because you don't get there for, like, being a good soul and not sinning, like, but it's a similar idea of being able to go to a paradise after death by believing in the Bodhisattva who's going to help you out with that. Well, if anybody else has any more questions, let me know. Pop them in the chat, and we'll start closing up this, because I'm out of breath and tired. I'm so weak, Bob. I'm so weak. Hopefully, if I get a diagnosis for what I think I'm gonna get, the treatment seems to be just iron pills. I take some iron vitamins already, but with a doctor, I can obviously get a more appropriate dosage. You know, you don't want to do that on your own because iron can actually, like, really kill you. So hopefully, if I can get a proper dosage and enough energy to live, if they can find out why I have problems with iron, I don't know if they'll probably just decide it's iron deficiency and just give me pills, but hopefully that'll mean I'll have energy again, I will feel better, and be able to return to a schedule at some point. That would be lovely. Thank you guys for your patience, and thanks to those who hung out with me this weekend and kept me distracted. I've always been terrified of having my blood drawn, and now I kind of wonder if that was some sort of psychological way of my body being like, don't lose blood, you will get sick, because I did get very sick. So that was a major, the distraction was nice, it helped out a lot. Just start eating metal. I don't think that'll help. I eat spinach, I've changed my diet up to a more iron-heavy diet, which has helped. Professional healthcare advice, I don't think that works. Oh, bye, Faku, I hope I didn't miss you. Thanks for joining us. The outfits Buddhist monk wear look pretty cute. I don't know which ones you're talking about, but I mean they've got a look. They look all right, I guess. Especially like fantasy Buddhist monks. They always make them look more colorful. I would assume. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like they used to be. Originally, they just wore like really coarse orange fabric, like not very treated, nice, soft to wear fabric. Because the point is to ignore the physical body, kind of. Like, don't torture yourself, but don't be ruled by physical experiences. I'm not gonna eat change and metal and dirt. You guys are horrible doctors. I'm not listening to any of you. Do you think Buddhism increases the likelihood for a country to have peace? Well, I mean, look at Tibet. You know, Tibet has had some issues, unfortunately, being invaded. Other countries, there have been issues. Like I said, Buddhism and Taoism have had issues with each other. I think any school of thought is likely to be misconstrued and misused by people that practice it. Just practicing it does not necessarily mean that you really do live it. Technically, Christianity is supposed to be all about love, but I don't see... I think at a government level, it is far too easy for any school of thought to become a tool of oppression. So I won't say that Buddhism is more likely. I think my experience in a personal level, I think Buddhism teaches a lot more about being open-minded than, say, Christianity does. But I think that also depends on what culture and what country you're in, because that mindset changes so much. And, you know, it's hard to generalize. It's so incredibly personal and different the world over. But, government sucks. Anarchy forever. Let's just all go live in the woods. Let's see. Chew on silverware? You guys are horrible! Aw, Jeff. Sorry you're not feeling well either. Get some rest. You and I should both take naps. Simultaneous naps. Yeah, I guess that's gonna be it if nobody else has any more questions, because I'm literally sweating. So ready for it. Here, let's check it. I've been checking this obsessively all day. I have a website that's going to update and tell me when my answers are here. I mean, it'll take a couple days for the doctor to look at it and decide what we're going to do next, but the test results will show up on this website. Nope, nothing. It's going to kill me. I wasn't that excited until my mom said, well, sometimes they have it back to me within a day, so maybe it'll show up today, instead of checking all day. So I will go rest. Not enough blood, become a vampire. Literally, I was thinking about that, though, because I was reading a book about how a lot of diseases, or no, it was a podcast. That's what it was. Sawbones. If you like medical history and comedy, it's really fun. A doctor explains to her husband medical history, and he doesn't understand any of it. It's funny. That they had an episode that discussed how a lot of illnesses are probably the origins of ideas of supernatural creatures. And honestly... how I've lived with what I have as an anemia, probably. I mean, I'm not diagnosed. Probably. I mean, extreme hunger, physical weakness, the cravings. Sounds like being a vampire to me. You need blood. You gotta get blood transfusions sometimes, depending on which kind you have. There's different reasons for being anemic, so the treatment changes based on why. Mine is probably iron deficiency, since iron vitamins help. But anyway. It's very, very interesting. You have their book, Ratch? I love that show. I figured you would like it. It's so good. I'm on like episode 100 something, but I have trouble listening to it sometimes because I get kind of squicked out by some things, which is so silly. I get squicked out by blood. It's so funny that, anyway, it's a good show. Y'all should check it out. Bye everyone. Thanks for all your support and your patience and everything in spite of me vanishing mostly. Hopefully we'll be back tomorrow. I don't know what we'll do. Maybe Silent Hill. We'll see how I feel. But I'll see y'all then. Bye.